Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. In this video today, we're going to show you step by step how to paint this palette. It's a great transitional palette from summer into fall, and it will bring a splash of color to your outdoor living space.
Hey everybody, we want to get started on our palette. It's August here, so it's kind of the end of your summer decor. I'm not quite ready to put out pumpkins yet, so I thought that a palette with sunflowers would be a good alternative or something good to use in between. This is my palette. The first step I like to do is stain my palette, but it's a step that you don't have to do if you don't have stain. The stain will help protect your wood on your palette, and it will also help give you that kind of weathered, rustic look if that's what you're after, so you definitely want to do this step. I usually put my palette, I have it sitting on sawbucks. It ends up being a really good height for me on the sawbucks. If you don't have sawbucks, you can always put your palette on a table, you can put it on the ground. Whatever's more comfortable for you. Just keep in mind that I'm outside, so it doesn't matter if I get stain on the ground underneath me, but if you are on your driveway or something, you don't want to get stain or paint on your driveway, be sure to put an old sheet or some newspapers underneath there so nothing drips on it. I always get my brushes at the Dollar Tree. Don't go out and spend a lot of money on paint brushes. They have I think a 3-inch, a 2-inch, and a 1-inch brush in the same pack for $1. The stain we just got at a local hardware store, and a little bit goes a long way. We're not painting furniture, so you don't have to be real, you don't have to fuss over this step. You just want to get some stain on it and then move on to the next step. Should just be really quickly brushing it on. I would use a medium to a dark stain. If you use something too light, then you're not going to see that rustic, that weathered look through your wood. And once it dries, it will be a little bit lighter. This is I think this was a dark walnut. But you just want to be real quick. Just throw you some of this on there. And I am just going to go and get just right along the edge around the outside. I don't do the back, just something really fast, and maybe just right around the tops of these really quickly with some stain. So I'd let your palette dry. I do have to do the top right there, but I let your palette dry for a day, usually just to let that stain soak in. Once it dries, if you see a little, maybe a couple of places that a little bit bare, maybe it doesn't look like the stain soaked in real good, it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. We'll pick up on step 2 though tomorrow. I'll show you how to put your background for your sunflower palette. Alright, we're ready to move on to step 2 on our palette. We're going to make our background. You can, if you want a really solid background, you can just use a white or off-white and just paint your palette. But what I like to do to give that weathered or that rustic look, I call it a whitewash. I have some white paint in this cup, and then I've got water in this one. I'm going to add a little bit of water to my paint, and then I'm going to keep my paintbrush wet. So I don't want a real solid finish. You want some of the stain to kind of come back through to give you that appearance. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water. You don't have to buy any kind of special paint. If you've got paint from another project that you've been doing around the house, if you've done the ceiling or trim work or anything that you have a white or off-white, use that paint. Use what you've got. You just want, when we get finished with our palette, we're going to put a clear on here to seal it in, so you just want to make sure your palette doesn't get wet before we do that last step. If you're not using outdoor paint, I don't have outdoor paint. I just usually buy inexpensive paints at like Walmart or the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby or somewhere like that. You don't have to get something fancy to paint to do these. So I have a little bit of water in there. I'm going to mix it up. I'm just going to kind of dip back and forth from the water into the paint. If you notice when you're painting, if you get it a little heavier in some spots, then just add some more water and thin it out, because we don't want anything real solid on here. And because we have the dark stain on there, it's going to soak in really quickly. So again, we're just really going to kind of dip in our paint. This already got some water, and dip in the water. And just really quickly. This doesn't have to be something that takes a long time. It's a really quick step. I usually I like to try, when I'm starting on a palette, I usually start maybe the first part of the week to do these 2 steps and get those out of the way. And then when I have more time towards the end of the week or the weekend, that's usually when I'll do the kind of the final steps that take a little bit more time. So just really quickly, I think really either white or off-white would probably be your best background with the sunflowers, but you know, if there's another color that you like to do, definitely do that and see how it turns out. All right, this is my finished step number 2. This is my background. You'll notice that that whitewash gave it a little weathered appearance. Some areas are a little bit more solid and then others are a little bit more see-through, and that's the kind of look that I like. If you want that more solid finish, then don't add the water to this step. I do not paint my sides with the background color. I have those stained, but I'll leave those as the stain, just maybe get a little bit of contrast. Let this dry overnight, so put your palette somewhere where it's going to be dry, where it's not going to get any rain or dew on your palette, and then our next step is going to be to start our sunflowers. So we're ready to start our sunflowers. Yay, you made it to this point. Really super simple. I'm going to show you some easy steps that anybody can do. You don't need a lot of paint. I'm going to list the paint colors in the description box. I usually just get paint from Walmart or Hobby Lobby that's like 97 cents, under $1. So I'll list those colors. You do need a yellow, a green, a brown, a black, and a white. And I'm just putting my paint on something plastic. This is just an old plastic plate we had inside. And then you'll need some water. My brushes I got from just the Dollar Tree. I like something small to start with, and then when I'm going to fill something in, I'll use a little bit bigger brush. And I found these sponge brushes at the Dollar Tree too. I think I'm going to use these to help with making the center of the sunflower. So I'm going to take the sponge brush, I'm going to take black. I want the very center of the sunflower to be black, and then we're going to move to the brown. So just I'd say in the middle to a little bit higher than the center of the palette. So we're just going to start making some round places. And if you don't have one of these sponge brushes, you can just use a regular brush. I just thought that might give it a nice effect. I think I'm actually going to go down just a little bit. Next, I'm going to move to the brown. So I'm just going to go around, or just going to hit kind of the outside here. Some brown and black. And I want to make it a little bit bigger though, the center here. So this is the center of the first sunflower. I want this one to be a little larger than the other 2 that I'm going to put on here. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you mess up a little bit, you can always get a wet paper towel and try to wipe it off. If not, just go back over it with your background color and start over. So we're going to move on to doing the petals. I like to use these little small, kind of like a pointed brush, and I just got this from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to outline my petals with yellow first. I think I'm going to try to put about 10 around the center, and then I'm going to go back and fill a couple in behind those petals. And the petal on a sunflower, it's not, it's pretty small. It's not real large compared to what the center of the sunflower is. So I just want kind of a basic outline here. And just kind of like a... So on my petals, I'm just kind of like a half circle with a tip here is all I'm doing. And I just want a faint outline because I'm going to go back in, or you can fill it in a lot faster with a larger brush. And then I'm going to put a smaller petal in between here. So just go all the way around. I'm estimating probably about 10. There may be a couple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's about 10. So I just went back with a little bit larger brush just to fill in. I just filled in all my petals. They don't have to be perfect or symmetrical or anything. Flower petals are not all the same, so it's okay if some are a little different. Now I'm going to go back to my small brush. I'm going to make a couple smaller petals in between here, and you're not going to be able to see the whole petal, so I'm just going to fill in a couple of these. Just kind of make it, and then we'll fill those in. And then we're going to go back with some of our brown and tan and do some shading in here. So that's all my petals for the first flower. Now I'm going to go back. I have my brown and I'm going to add a little bit of white and mix these together just so I get kind of a lighter tan kind of color is what I'm after. And I'm going to go back and do some shading. You know, a lot of pictures that you look at with the sunflower, this kind of continues up around the bottom where the petals hit the seeds, and then I'm going to go around my petals a little bit of outline. You don't have to outline every single one of them, but I want this a little bit lighter than the brown that's already in the center. So we're just going to I'm just going to kind of go in between some of these. That'll just help some of that blend. And if the darker brown goes up in there, that's fine too. Just going to go around the edge here. And then I'm going to take that same kind of color and just, I think I'm going to use my small brush though. And maybe just outline some of the corners here so it'll give a little bit more definition. You don't have to go back on every one. Just maybe hit some pieces and parts here. So I just went around kind of around the outline. You can even kind of go in the center a little bit just to give it some kind of some contour, some shading on all my petals. Maybe hit the tips of it or hit the triangle part up here at the top. Black. So this is our first sunflower. I think that one's finished. We're going to move on to our second one. So I'm going to start on the next sunflower. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller in comparison to the first one. I want it to be a little bit larger. Now you can put these anywhere you want to put them. I'm going to try to put a little smaller one here and maybe one kind of hitting up here in the top, and that way it'll give us plenty of room to write whatever you want to write there in the sides. I'm going to go back to my sponge brush. Again, you don't have to have a sponge brush. You can just use a regular paintbrush if you'd like. And just start with my center again. And I don't want this to be as big. Then I'm going to go back to the brown. I'm going to go around brown. And it's okay if they mix together because the seeds a lot of times look like that on sunflower. So now I'm going to start my petals on my next flower. I'm going to go back to the small brush again and just make me some outlines. This is all my petals for the next flower. I just went back, I took that brush and just filled them in here. I'm going to go back and get some of that light brown, that kind of tan shade, and kind of blend in around the center here. And it's okay if the colors mix a little bit. And then I'm going to take this brush and just kind of go around the edges in different spots of my petals to kind of help with the outline a little bit. That's all of my sunflower number 2. I'm going to move on and make the last sunflower. I'm going to put this one towards the top here. You want to be sure you leave room, you know, enough to write whatever saying that you're going to put on your palette. So just keep that in mind. I think I'm going to put this one a little more this way. Again, I don't want it quite as big as my first one. And just go around with your brown. It's okay if these mix in a little bit. I think it looks better if they mix together a little bit. And then we're going to start on our petals again. So go back to your small brush and just make that kind of, look at this half circle, kind of teardrop shape. So this is the third sunflower with the petals. I'm just going to go back with the light, kind of like the tan, mixing my brown and my white just right around the edges here where it comes together with the center. It's okay if they mix together. That's kind of the look I'm wanting for it to blend together. And if you see somewhere that's not, maybe looks like it needs to be mixed in a little bit more, definitely do that. And then I'm just going to take this shade and kind of outline my petals on different parts here. You can go up the center a little bit too. So that's the 3 sunflowers. There's 2, and here's 1. And then up here is the last one. So maybe just step back, kind of look and make sure that's where you want them as far as like your spacing. I think that's plenty on the palette. You know, you could definitely add another one if you'd like another one. Now we're going to go back and put some leaves, add some green, and we'll have some green and white paint to do the leaves and the stem. So I'm just going to go back to my little brush and just kind of put where I want some leaves to go, outline those, and maybe a stem coming down. And then we can go back with the bigger brush and fill it in. I'm just going to put a little stem about that far. I'm not going to go all the way down. Maybe connect these 2 here. And you can do this however you want them kind of connected, and if you don't, that's fine. And for your leaves, I would just kind of do a similar shape to your petals. Just make you some leaves back here. Maybe one more up here. So I'm going to mix a little bit of the white and green just to give me a little bit of a shading and just make me a little bit larger stem, kind of go over where I've already painted with the small brush. And you can definitely put you another leaf or 2 in here if you think it needs another leaf. And we just kind of connected my stem, just kind of lengthened it out to the bottom. And you don't even really have to do a stem. You could just put the sunflower heads on here if you just want to have that look. Next, I'm going to move on to the writing. And if there is any place that I usually have to redo, that's usually where that happens. So, you know, if you mess up, you can always wipe it off or start back over. Just put you some more background and then do your writing again. I like to find whatever I'm going to say on my palette, look up the font. You can always search for the saying and get a picture of it, look at it while you're painting. You can use a pencil or a pen and write it on your palette and then paint back over it. I just like to use the small brush. So we've got all our sunflowers done. Next we're going to move on to the writing. You know, you don't have to write anything on here. It's really up to you. I'm going to put Hello Autumn on mine. You know, you have lots of choices though. You could put Welcome Fall. You could just put Welcome. And you could put like, you know, you could even put blessed or thankful. You could put any of those sayings, whatever, you know, whatever you like. I usually search for whatever saying I'm going to use. Find the right font that you like, and then you can even take a pencil and lightly trace on your palette, trace over it, because you're not going to see it once you paint it. So that's what I did. Sometimes it is easier to do the rest of your word and then go back and do your first letter in the word, because it's usually a little bit larger. So I've got my tracing. I'm going to go back and paint it. Usually the lettering I usually have to paint 2 or 3 times just so you can see it really good. I dab to do my little bee, and then take my little small brush and do the top of him. Just a little stinger, little point. Little small wings. And then we'll go back and make a little trail here. I'm gonna put one more. These are not cute. Cute. I'm gonna put one more up here, kind of flying away. So here's my letters. Now you can do, you know, any kind of font you want or any saying, but I just thought I'd let you see what I wrote, my Hello Autumn. And then I did add another bumblebee down here, right under the writing. And the last step that you want to do on your palette, once you're done painting everything, let it dry good. And once it's dry, you want to take some clear spray paint. I usually get 2 cans of clear spray paint. I get the gloss finish, get whatever finish that you like. Spray your palette, definitely spray around good the things that you've painted on your palette, cover them very well. Let that dry, and then once it's dry, do another coat. I usually do 2 coats of clear. That way it'll help protect your paint, you know, if it rains, so it won't wash off. So definitely have your palette flat though when you spray it. You don't want to have it leaning up when you spray it, or some of your writing may run or smear. And if it does smear a little bit, you know, you can always tap it off with a paper towel, but I'd have it laying down like this when you go to spray it, and that'll help from that running. We're going to go lean my palette up so you can see it standing up.
So here's our finished palette. It looks great. It will really brighten up your outdoor spaces. You can take a screenshot or a still shot at the end of the video here or at the beginning. She's going to zoom in some just so you can see the different sunflowers if you want to look at those while you're painting. Now I lean my palettes up against a telephone pole out in the yard. We usually take a bungee cord and wrap around the back of the palette. You can tap in 2 nails just to secure it, especially if you're leaning it up against a tree or a gate or something. You don't want it to fall over and be in the yard. It may smudge some of your paint off. Subscribe to our channel. We have some great fall pumpkin palettes that we're going to bring you soon. We do have a nice farmhouse wreath if you're looking for that look, and I have a traditional wreath that we're going to bring you sometime this week. Take a snapshot of your picture, send it to us. I'd love to see your designs and see how you spiced it up or changed it up. And thanks for watching.
Are you comfortable? Huh? Are you comfortable? I hear you snoring. But you're still peeking. Look at how you're laying. What in the world? What is this? Say, Mom, I'm sleepy. I'm sleepy, Mom. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. What are you doing?